Hey guys, hey, it's Lonzie Rattler here, the Creative Finance King, and I'm coming to give you guys some great knowledge on what is creative financing and what is it being utilized for. How do you utilize it? How do you structure deals? Creative financing, right? So first, I want you guys to go ahead and subscribe. Click the notification button so you guys can get updates on the upcoming events that's actually coming up. Share this video here. Go ahead and click the share button. Share it to those who actually want to get started in real estate investing, but don't know where to actually start. And I also have a cash giveaway for those who have participated and those who invite 3 people. I want you guys to go ahead and follow me here on at Lonzie Rattler. And that's LonzieRattler at Instagram. So I definitely want to get started into creative financing and what is creative financing, right? So tons of time, like we hear fix and flip, or we hear actually wholesaling that's getting tossed around. Everybody know about what is wholesaling. Everybody know like what is fix and flip, but not too many people actually know what is creative financing. So creative financing is a way to acquire property, literally acquire property with no money out of pocket. So you can become a landlord overnight, or it's like you can or you can actually start to do the fix and flip process, or you can wholesale a property. So you have multiple ways to get rid of a property and create you a check from not actually purchasing a property or going out and getting a traditional loan for a property. So what does that look like, right? So we tend to take the southern approach of wholesaling properties. That's when we talk to cold call the seller and we try to beat them down on a price to actually get them lower to start wholesaling that property off to an investor who's going to do the fix and flip, right? Well, in the creative world, it's a little bit different. So sometimes like the wholesaling, it just won't work. Wholesale, it just won't work on that end because, however, that seller still needs to either one, pay off the mortgage, and what you're trying to offer them is lower than what the mortgage is, or they just flat out just cannot let their property or their equity go. So of course, like we have to think of creative ways to actually acquire that property. Every property that you're going to come across, like you still can make money on. There's not one property that you cannot come across that you're not making money, right? And what did that look like? So of course, like a lot of wholesalers, a lot of different investors that's in the game, what they tend to do is they tend to only be a master of just one exit strategy, right? And that exit strategy, it might be whatever their appetite is. So the appetite might be fix and flipping. That's all they know how to acquire a loan to actually go out and purchase property, right? But creative financing, like we don't acquire the loan. So we actually go out and we acquire the deed to the property. And sometimes 9 times out of 10, that mortgage will stay in the seller's name. So we don't have to go get funding to actually acquire this property. So the person who controls the deed actually controls the property. So what do that look like? So a deed and a mortgage is two different things. And a deed is transferable back and forth. And sometimes, well, like a mortgage can be transferable as well. But however, you would have to notify the bank, let the bank know that you are taking over the mortgage. And then you also have to get approval from that bank, and you have to go get approved as well. So of course, like you don't have to go use your credit to acquire a property. You just use the seller's credit and acquire that property and make the money off the property. And the seller will be in good hands because now the seller, one, got rid of a property that he or she don't even want anymore, or it's probably just a headache to that seller. So you can acquire that property without going to go get a traditional mortgage. And now you own that property and you can move into that house, or you can buy and hold the property, or you can wholesale that house, or you can do fix and flip. So you have multiple streams of ways to actually get rid of this property and make a profit. right? So, so of course, like I want to talk about subject to and what is sub to, right? So sub to is we acquiring the property with the existing mortgage. So this only will work with those properties that have a mortgage that's on there. So of course, a seller. So we cold call a seller, and the seller say, "Hey, I need $100,000 for my property," and everybody first thought is, hey, let's wholesale this deal. So of course, we try to wholesale the deal and we try to negotiate the repairs, drop the price, and we come back with an offer of 50 grand. And the homeowner say, no, that won't work. I cannot take 50 grand. I still have a mortgage that's 98,000, 97,000 still need to get satisfied, but I'm willing to sell it at 100 grand. Get a homeowner. Like we can acquire the property with $98,000 because we utilizing the seller's credit. So we can actually structure a deal, create a finance law. We can actually structure a deal and give that homeowner 100 grand on paper, and then like initially get them a down. Sometimes in certain cases, we'll give them a deposit to go ahead and evacuate the property. So now, once we go to closing, that deed is transferred over to your LLC, and now you own that property, and you don't have to go out and go get a traditional mortgage now on this home because you're utilizing that seller's credit. So that mortgage will still stay in the seller's name. You will own the deed to the property. Now, who owns the deed is who controls the property. It doesn't matter if the seller, they have a mortgage on this house. It does not matter. It matters who own that deed. And at that point, your LLC will own the deed, so you will own that property. And now you have full control of this house. So of course, like when you have full control of a property, now you can go ahead and do whatever that you guys are comfortable of doing. So you actually can do this with little to no money out of pocket. And it's so easy to go out and have these candid conversations with these sellers and and give these sellers 85, 90% of the purchase price or whatever the case may be, reflective on the repairs need to be done on inside of the property, right? So we want to give the seller close to what they're asking, but it have to be a win-win for just all parties involved. It just can't be just a one-way street. So of course we get in the property for little to nothing, and then they walk away from the deal. That sounds like a win-win on both parties. So of course, like we run across pre-foreclosure deals. Now these are the low-hanging fruit. Pre-foreclosures, they are primed for subject to deals. Because what you essentially are doing is you reinstating the mortgage, right? So let's say, for instance, a property, market value, 100 grand, right? So market value is 100,000, but the seller still have a principal balance of, let's say, 87 grand on the property. A wholesaler cannot come in and try to wholesale that property. There is no equity. Is what 87 and 100, that's 13 grand. So a wholesaler would just walk away from this deal because this deal does not work. But however, so they owe 100,000. They still got to know the market value is 100,000. They owe 87, but they are behind on their mortgage. Let's say 10 grand. You can own that property for $10,000. Right. So now you own a property that's worth $100,000, but however, it's still got a principal balance of 87 grand still left on this property. So you can actually pick that property up with $10,000 and you can put your renter inside there that's starting to pay down this mortgage every single month. Now, once this property is free and clear, then you own that property. So that's how you can acquire a property that's in pre-foreclosure. Now, of course, you definitely want to run your numbers when you actually looking at these pre-foreclosure deals, because sometimes when you acquiring property, what tends to end up happening is that we get excited, right? So we get excited that we got a deal that we can pick up for a few $1,000s or a couple $100 or whatever the case may be. So we get excited. The first thing that we want to do is hurry up and sign paperwork and hurry up and try to lock the deal up. But 9 times out of 10, you still want to run all your numbers, because what if you get into a deal that that definitely you cannot do literally too much too. Like I had a deal literally today. It was a deal came across my desk. It was a pre-foreclosure deal. The guy, he actually owed $115,000 on his mortgage, and the property was going to foreclosure. The market value on the property was $120,000. So I'm already knowing that all I have to do is acquire the property and put a renter inside of it, and then I will still own the property. Now I can get a cash flow. I think his mortgage was $875. If I put a renter in there at $1,000, I get $125 cash flow every single month. So of course, he owed 115. Market value was 120,000, but he wouldn't let me know like what he was behind. So of course, we figured it out that he was behind a few $1,000s, and we went out and viewed the property. Now, once we viewed the property, we knew that this property, just upon looking at the property on the inside, it was at least about 35 to 40 grand worth of work need to be brought up. So that deal just didn't work. So we had to walk away and tell the homeowner, I'm sorry, but this is not something that we want to take on, because running your numbers is everything, because I don't want to have to pay market value for a property that I still got to dump 40 grand into. Now I'm over leveraged in that point. So of course I told the seller, like, there's nothing that I can actually do because this property is stripped. The kitchen was it was gutted, totally destroyed. It needed a new roof. Like the property needed some work. And of course, at that point, you cannot just go ahead and acquire that property. Now, if you want to, I mean, like whatever your appetite might be, if I would have been a contractor and came in and seen I could pick up this house for a couple $1,000s and just renovated it and live there, then that's a different story, because I don't have to go get finance for a property. But when you are an investor, it's a different story. Like you have to look at ways of how you're getting rid of this property. So our buyer on the back end of this property, it literally just would have been a contractor at that point. So that narrowed everything all the way down to your specific buyer. And I like to have a wide range of buyers. I always like to just like, if I get a property and I dispose this property, I want to have numerous of buyers that I can actually sell this property to. It may not be an investor. It may be a traditional buyer who's going to pick this property up. But however, like I just don't want to have just one buyer. And then of course, like we acquire a property that we end up sitting on just because we only have one exit strategy. Like, and the exit strategy is just to wholesale this property off to a contractor, because a traditional buyer cannot move into this property and be satisfied. They move into a property that they have to put 40 grand into. So of course, like when we're doing subject tools, even though it's a powerful strategy, that we acquiring property subject to the existing mortgage and we just taking over the mortgage payments and just paying, that sounds good. Like it sounds real promising until you do look at all of the numbers that's presented in front of you. Like you want to look at the market value, you want to look how much they behind, right? And you want to look about what's the principal balance still left on the mortgage, because that's still got to get satisfied. That they refinance, is it an arm on this property? If it's an arm on the property, I just walk away. It's way too much. It's way too difficult to get a property that have an arm than a property that does not have an arm. And I just walk away from properties like that. I walk away from a lot of deals that just does not make sense. So if it don't make sense, don't be too eager to jump out there to acquire these properties with little to no money. I mean, it's tons of opportunity out there. So I brought a property at the foreclosure auction. So you can still buy properties at auctions. Like we buy them and pick them up all the time. But however, like we buy them on a redemption right. So you see 9 times out of 10 that a lot of people, they go down to these auctions and they got cashier's check, right? Them are cash buyers. They got cashier's checks. So what they tend to do is they tend to go out and bid on these houses, right? These houses, and they buy them sight unseen. So how do you go around that? So here in Michigan, like we got a right of redemption. So even though that the property sold at the auction for 65, 70 grand, that homeowner still got 6 months to go redeem his or her property at 65 grand. So if they had owed $100,000 and the property sold at the auction for 65,000, they can go pay 65 grand downtown and now the property back free and clear. So what I tend to do is I tend to utilize this strategy, right? So I'll go downtown, watch these properties get foreclosed on, then I go back and door knock or cold call these sellers, right? And I just cold call them. I just let them know, like, hey, I see that the property on 123 Main Street just went to foreclosure. Are you still in position to actually take an offer on this property? And they don't understand that they can still sell their property. 9 times out of 10, homeowners will not understand that they have the right of redemption. So 9 times out of 10, what they do, so they end up and they leave out the property. But I tend to tell them, like, no, I don't want you to leave out the property, because I know for a fact that if this person was to leave outside of this property and the bank come by and see that this property is vacant, then the bank will come back and they will start to say that they waived a right of redemption. They waived it. So now that property reverts back to the person, whoever bought it at the auction. So I tell the homeowners, hey, still stay inside of the property as we begin to put a lockbox on the property and we begin to show the property to future investors, because now we are the homeowners, because we went over there and we bought his or her redemption rights. So these are just strategies. And I normally pick up redemption rights for a couple $100, because homeowners don't know that they still have options. So of course, right of redemptions is very key. It's very key. Like when you're going out and you're making these purchases on properties that you never got qualified for. So of course, you can go pick up the right of redemptions from anybody for a couple $100, and now you own a property that just sold at the auction for 65 grand, but you still got 6 months legally. You got 6 months to go back and sell that property for $65,000. So of course, like what you can do though is you can watch that property go to foreclosure, see who bid on the property, befriend the people who bid on this same property, go back to the homeowner, right? Buy his or her redemption right for, let's say, $500, right? Buy it for $500. Go back to the person who bought the property at the auction. Tell that person, like, hey, if you don't want to wait the 6 months of the redemption period, you can actually buy this property for me right now for $2,500. You just made $2 grand. That easy, because you paid the homeowner $500 to buy his or her redemption rights, and you went back to the original buyer who just bought it at the auction, and you sold them redemption rights directly to him or her for $2,500, and just made you $2,000 on a property that you did not have to go get qualified for. So there's plenty of ways to go out and acquire property without never having to even own or get qualified for a house. So so a lot of times, like what we do is we go the traditional route. Everybody go find them a real estate agent, go find them a mortgage lender, acquire all this debt, go out and buy $200,000 house, and then 3-4 years later, property going to foreclosure. So I tend to buy property that I don't have to go get finance for at all. You don't have to go the traditional way to go out there, acquire a loan, and buy $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 property. Like, you don't have to. There are people who who have $200,000-$300,000 mortgages, and they study losing them at the auction left and right. Like, they losing them. And a lot of times what will end up happening is that these homeowners, right? These homeowners, they lose the property, and they literally will sell you the property for nothing. They will literally sell you these houses for anything, right? So of course, if you come to a seller and you tell a seller literally, look, I know you behind $4,500, $5,000, or wherever the case may be that they behind on their mortgage, I can get you caught up and still move you out, so this not hitting your credit. I mean, it's a win-win, right? It's a win for the seller and it's a win for you. You paying $4,500 for a house that's worth $100,000 that you didn't have to go get qualified for. So in the interim, everybody wins. Yeah. So everybody will win in that interim. So it's a very, very powerful strategy when you go out and you start to do investing, and you don't have to go get financing for this. Like, nothing I do pertains to me getting financed for it. So of course, like it just ways to go out and make this happen. Like I see people all the time. Like I just had a student of mine out in Philadelphia. He locked up a deal for literally $10,000, and he locked up a deal for $10,000. And what ended up happening that this same seller was actually behind. The seller was actually behind. I think the seller was actually behind a couple $1,000s. So he paid a couple $1,000s and paid the homeowner 10 grand to walk away from the no, yeah, 10 grand. So it came out to be $15,000. The seller was behind 5 grand. He gave him $10,000 to walk away from the property. And so now he all in is $65,000 because it still got a principal balance of 50 grand on his property. So he paid the seller. So he paid the seller the 10 grand, 5 grand just to get them caught up, and the principal balance still 50 grand. So he all in $65,000, right, on a property that's worth $230,000. So he instantly got $170,000 worth of equity. Now, truth be told, that he's going to put this property on the market after he go in and he paint it and put some new carpet or whatever down. So he might be all in $20,000 for this property. So he all in at 70 grand, but he paid $15,000 to actually own this property. So he all in at 70. He sell the property for 230. That's $160,000 worth of equity that's go back to him. So that's $160,000 cashier's check at literally at closing. And if he did not know how to do subject to, he wouldn't have. I mean, because he tried to wholesale a deal, and he was just like, "Man, I don't think this really gonna work. I really want to tap into the rest of the equity." I'm like, "Why not do a subject to deal?" So of course, I'm gonna get him on here, and he definitely gonna explain the deal. But of course, like he literally got over $100,000 that he will be walking away with once this property is all said and done. So I'm definitely, so you definitely don't have to go out there and do all of that loan. Like you don't have to go out there and acquire a loan. And 9 times out of 10, a real estate agent won't even know these exit strategies or what are you doing to a property. So 9 times out of 10, like you're gonna have to educate your realtor, and your realtor is going to be the one that's going out bird dog and looking for properties for you. Yeah, and you can do this just about anywhere. But you just got to just know the laws of what states that you actually doing this in. Like I know down in Florida, they have no right of redemption. So once the property sold at the auction, hey, it's a done deal. A property down in Atlanta, like they have a year. So they literally, here in Michigan, like we got 6 months, but down in Atlanta, like they literally have a year to redeem their property back. So you just got to just check on which state, get a real estate attorney involved, and draft up the paperwork. And the paperwork normally run anywhere from $350 to $500. But however, like you can use the same paperwork over and over and over in whatever state that you are in, and just go out and the more people you know, the easier the conversation like they will actually get, because everybody knows somebody who lost a property or going to foreclosure or have a distressed property or whatever the case may be. We all know people who struggling, who live in check to check or whatever the case it is on these properties, and they can't afford it. So of course, like you can go to these homeowners and relieve some of that tension. So definitely that's a powerful way to go ahead and literally acquire property with no money. Like you don't need any banks backing you. This is all legal. It's called subject to. So you can actually go out there and just start doing the same strategy and anywhere and acquire properties, man. So either whether you want to be a landlord, whether you want to do fix and flip, whether you even want to wholesale, a wholesale deal might not work, but you know that you can get the same homeowner creative ways to actually still sell the property, and get you some real estate agents actually on your team, and you just educate them on how you actually function and let them actually start making reaching out to different sellers and whatever the case may be. Like they can reach out to these sellers because they cold call sellers just like how you would cold call them. But they cold calling sellers to list their property. Now, if they cold calling sellers and saying, hey, I have a buyer who want to purchase the property, it'll be a different story. Because now you can position yourself as that buyer and go ahead and walk through tons of property with these real estate agents and start writing offers right then and there. Because the agent gonna give you everything that you actually need. They're gonna give you the comps. They're gonna give you what the seller is actually looking for. So a real estate agent is key to doing any real estate transaction, or a real estate attorney, one of the two. But they will have access to a lot more than what a traditional investor can actually tap into. So one is get an agent or an attorney and go out and start cold calling sellers. Cold call the ones that you know who need your help, because you have a service and they got the product. So of course, go out and just start cold calling. And your first 2-3 phone calls is gonna be rough because you don't know what to say to these sellers, right? So of course, like, you don't get hung up on numerous of times. I still get hung up on, still to this day, but I don't care because I know somebody out there. It's a yes on the other side of that telephone. So that's my take on actually acquiring properties with little to no money out of pocket on subject to. So subscribe to this YouTube channel. Actually go out and share this to someone who needs this information, who needs to know how to go out and acquire property with no money out of pocket, or with little to no money down, right? And acquire these $200,000-$300,000 houses that they can actually start to make their own rentals, right? So they can make them rentals, or they can start doing the fix and flip on the property if the property need repairs, or they can wholesale this deal. So either way, this can be shared to someone who wants to get started into real estate. And so definitely subscribe and just go ahead and share, and I'll be in touch with you guys.